All right. So let's talk about how to market and promote your app. So in this day and age, being able to successfully market your app is absolutely critical to your app's success. You can't just work so hard on developing your app and then just put it on the App Store and expect to have several different users downloading your app. You actually have to put in some work for marketing and promoting in order to achieve some success with your app. And there are three main things to remember when you're trying to market and promote your app. The first is awareness, making sure people even know your app exists. Next is acquisition, which is getting the necessary downloads and installs of your app. And then finally is retention, making sure that the people who download your app are actually using it and not just downloading and then uninstalling your app shortly after. Okay, so first let's talk about awareness. Okay. So awareness is not just about having others know that your app exists. It's also about knowing your app and where it ranks compared to your competitors and knowing your market, the people who your app is tailored for. So the first step is to get to know whether people are actually aware of your app. And I have a simple test that you can do to determine whether your app is relevant or people are aware of your app or if your app is not showing up in people's search results. First thing you should do is just type your app name in Google, okay? If your app is on the first page or is one of the first results to show up, then that's good. Also, if you open the App Store and you type in your app name and it's one of the first apps to show up or it's at the top of the list, that's also good. And then finally, you should determine what your app category is or what someone will typically type if they're looking for an app like your app. Type that inside the search bar of the App Store or the Play Store. And if your app shows up on the first page or it's one of the apps on the top of the list, then you're fine. So if you do all of these three tests and your app passes all of these three tests, then you're fine. But if your app fails all the three tests, then that means you have some work to do. So let me give you an example. Suppose we're going to do this test for the Calm app, which is a meditation app, okay? First thing we'll do is type Calm into Google. And as you can see, Calm is the top thing that shows up. So it passes the first part of the test. Next, we go into Google Play or the Apple App Store, and we'll type the name of the app, which is Calm. If it's one of the top to show up, then it's good. As you can see in this case, Calm is one of the top apps that shows up. And then finally, we'll type a keyword or something that the user may type in order to find this app, such as meditation app. And if Calm shows up for meditation app, like it does in this case, then that means we've passed all three tests. This Calm app is doing great in terms of awareness. So speaking about awareness, you also have to be aware of the type of demographic or your target audience that your app is catering to. And the reason why it's good to at least know the type of people who are downloading your app is so that you can tailor your marketing messages to that type of audience. So for example, if your app is a dating app, you'll probably target an audience between the ages of 18 to 50, and you'll be targeting people who are not already in a relationship. So you wouldn't be targeting, let's say, a 78-year-old grandma who is happily married. Unless maybe your app is trying to promote affairs like the Ashley Madison app. But that's not the example I'm using. I'm using an example like Tinder or Match or an app like that. Okay, so after you've figured out whether people are generally aware of your app and what type of audience your target audience is. Next, you should try to improve your App Store listing, okay? So we call this App Store optimization. So now you'll use relevant keywords that you expect your target audience to be searching for when you're looking for your app. You'll use those keywords in your App Store description. You also have to make sure that the app icon you're using is visually appealing. So it's just like when you go onto YouTube, the top two things that probably determine whether you're going to watch a video is the video title and the thumbnail. Similarly, when you go to an app store, it's usually app title and the app icon. So make sure that your app title and your app icon are the best it could be. And speaking of app title, the App Store uses algorithms that put a high importance on the app title, okay? So try to take advantage of that by adding a little bit of a description of what your app does inside your app title. So let's say, going back to our Calm example, the Calm app's app title is actually Calm, but it also has a little bit of a description of what the app does inside the app title, which is sleep, meditate, relax. So like I mentioned, since the App Store algorithm puts a high importance on the app title, try to take advantage of that by putting some keywords not only in your app description, but also inside your app title. This should boost the discoverability of your app. So another thing you should keep in mind is you should be able to clearly communicate what your app does or how it's different from the competitors in just one single sentence. So if you're not able to do that yet, try to take some time to actually get a one sentence description of what your app is supposed to do. I mean, if you need some help, nowadays we have some AI tools like ChatGPT that can help you identify the key things that your app does and summarize it for you. And then you can use this summarized description of your app inside some of your app promotional messages or some of your ads or any type of marketing material. Speaking of marketing materials, so let's talk about social media. Focus on maybe one or two social media channels. It could be YouTube, it could be TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. Whatever type of channel fits your type of audience, try to develop some content for that channel. So let's say your audience is more of a mature old audience. You may want to use something like Meta or Facebook. If your audience is a much younger demographic, then you may want to go for something like TikTok. And if you have a business audience or an audience that have more of a business mindset, then you may want to utilize LinkedIn. So the social media channels that you may choose will depend on the type of audience that you have. And the more content you post on these social media channels, the more your audience would grow, because people tend to share content with other people. So you can actually go viral just based on posting content on your social media channels. One other thing that is important to have is a website, because sometimes if someone wants to share your app with someone, it's easier for them to just share a website so that the person who goes to the website can find all your information about your app and your social media links and everything else in one spot. So don't overlook the importance of a landing page or website. And keep in mind that people who tend to do reviews of app, like let's say top 5 apps for productivity or top 10 apps to learn a new language, those editors prefer to have a website that they can refer your readers to. So don't overlook the importance of a website. So like I mentioned, to build awareness, you should be able to identify your target audience and their interest, and also create some marketing material or content or ads that is tailored for your specific audience. Also, make sure you're using relevant keywords, app title, app logo, app store description, and so forth to maximize the app store discoverability. And also utilize social media to build a community around your app. Now let's talk about acquisition. So once you've created some type of awareness of your app, how do you get the users to find and download your app? So typically there are two main ways of getting downloads, whether it's paid ads or the more organic route, which is word of mouth. Both ways could be very powerful. If you have some money to spend, I suggest you use paid ads because you can target your specific audience that you want to download your app using something like Google ads or Meta or Facebook ads, even LinkedIn and Instagram ads. You can use those platforms to target your specific audience and get them to download your app. But if you want to go down the more organic route, your social media is going to be extremely important. You have to constantly produce some content for your social media platforms that will boost engagement of your community. Because the more engaged your community is, the more they talk about your app and the more downloads you'll get. It's as simple as that. But a third way that has become very popular nowadays is influencer marketing. 2 out of 3 people would rather download an app that an influencer has suggested than something that they saw in an ad somewhere. So you can try to find someone who is popular in your niche or with your target audience, and then get them to mention your app on your platform. And you'll be surprised how effective this method is. The more popular the influencer is, the more downloads you'll get for your app once they promote it. Another thing you can incorporate in order to boost the downloads or help with your acquisition is to introduce some type of promotions or referral programs or discounts. Okay, so for example, somewhere in your ads or your marketing material, you can mention some promo code that they can use after they download your app in order to get some type of app credits or boost or free content within your app. And for your existing users, you can ask them to share your app, and in exchange, they get some type of in-app credits or something useful to them. Okay, so finally, let's talk about retention. Once you've been able to build some awareness and you've been able to acquire some users, it's all useless if those users are uninstalling your app right away. Something like half of apps that are downloaded are uninstalled within the first day, or the user never even goes back to that app after they download it. So being able to keep your users is very important. It's like a bucket. If there's a hole at the bottom, it doesn't matter the amount of water you pour in it. If the bucket is leaking or you're losing a lot of users, you're essentially making things much harder than it needs to be. To retain your users, try to have a good, efficient, easy onboarding process. So if your app is a little bit confusing or complex, try to have a little bit of a start tour or some type of guide once the user downloads your app. Also, you can utilize in-app notifications. So let's say 1 or 2 days goes by and your user hasn't used the app, you can just send them a friendly message about something interesting that will make them want to reopen your app. And if you do have a list of your users' emails, you can have some type of newsletter that the user subscribes to, and every week or so you can just send out a newsletter just to keep your app in your user's mind. Okay, so here attention is key. The more attention you have, the more successful your app would be, whether it's financially or whether you want to leave a big impact or be relevant. The more attention you have, the more success you have. So another thing to keep in mind in order to keep your users is to constantly update your app. If your app hasn't been updated in like 3 years or so, your users basically don't see any new features or bug fixes, or they don't get the sense that your app is improving. So the user is much more likely to just go and see if another app out there is doing something better, and then uninstall your app if they find something better. And the last and final thing I want to mention in terms of retention is to try to keep a high rating. Your App Store rating, try to maintain a rating that is at 4 or higher. Because anything below that means you're doing something wrong and your users are not really happy with your app. So keep an eye on your App Store rating and try to constantly improve your app. When a user gives you a suggestion or they report a bug to you, try to take action on that as soon as possible. Otherwise, your ratings will just keep plummeting. So to recap, the 3 main things that are necessary when you're trying to market and promote your app successfully are awareness, acquisition, and retention. If your app is lacking in any one of these 3 categories, try to implement some of the suggestions I've given you in order to improve the chances of your app success.